Remember that surreal moment in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen when Sean Connery's Alan Quatermain first locks eyes on Captain Nemo's impossible car? That blinding white leviathan sliding through 19th century streets looked like something out of a fever dream. It was far too long, too ornate, too absurd, and yet unforgettable. Most people barely remember the movie. But that car, that six-wheeled steampunk beast built from ivory and insanity, it stole the spotlight. It shouldn't have existed. It shouldn't have worked. And yet it did magnificently. Today we're diving into 20 weird facts about Captain Nemo's Nautilus car, a vehicle so outrageously engineered, it outshone the movie that birthed it. From dual-axle steering and hydraulic tricks to secret Land Rover bones and Indian royal symbolism, this is the strange, brilliant tale of a car that defied logic and time. So buckle up, because by the end of this countdown, you'll see why Nemo's machine deserves far more respect than it ever got. 20. 6 wheels. 2 steerable axles. Here's the first jaw-dropper. The Nautilus car didn't just look complex. It was complex. It rolled on 6 wheels, but the front 2 axles actually steered independently, giving it a turning ability far beyond its massive size. No CGI, no trickery. This was real mechanical engineering. 2 separate steering systems working in harmony, custom linkages and geometry finely tuned so the beast could move with grace. Stunt drivers swore it was surprisingly agile for something that looked like a moving cathedral. Parallel parking it, though, probably a nightmare only Captain Nemo himself would dare attempt. 19. Enormous footprint. Let's talk about scale. The car stretched 22 feet long and 9 feet wide, wider than a Hummer H1. It was so massive that many European streets couldn't fit it. Bridges were reinforced, props moved aside, even doorways widened just so this monstrous vision could pass. And remember, this was supposed to exist in the Victorian era. A car that could have scared horse carriages right off the road. 18. The hydraulic party trick. Now imagine a car that can rise and lower itself on command. The Nautilus had a built-in hydraulic suspension system that lifted its heavy frame several inches up or down. It wasn't just for flair. These hydraulics helped it clear debris, adjust stance, or rise dramatically during filming. And yes, those rising from the ground shots in the movie, no CGI. Pure mechanics, pure cinema. 17. Land Rover Fire Tender. Bones beneath all that lavish metal and carved ivory curves lay something unexpected. A Land Rover Fire Tender chassis. Fire trucks are built to survive anything, to haul heavy loads, climb impossible terrain, and never quit. It was the perfect base for Nemo's dream machine. The team stretched, reinforced, and reshaped it to handle 6 wheels, making the world's first Victorian fire truck submarine limousine hybrid. 16. Rover V8 Heartbeat. And what powered it? A Rover V8 engine wedged into a hand-built steel subframe. Not exotic, but legendary, a descendant of a 1960s Buick design later adopted by the British for everything from race cars to Range Rovers. It was light-strong and reliable enough to drive this absurd creation at real speed. The engineering team had to invent custom mounts, cooling ducts, and a maze of exhaust pipes just to make it breathe under all that ornate armor. It was a miracle. The thing ran at all, and somehow it ran beautifully. 15. Claimed 80 mph runner. Despite its absurd proportions, stunt drivers claimed the Nautilus could hit 80 miles per hour. 80 for a 22-foot, 6-wheeled, 9-foot wide car that looked like a marble temple on wheels that's pure insanity. And yet it wasn't just fast, it cornered surprisingly well. That dual-axle steering gave it stability and control, making it feel less like a tank and more like a very expensive, very white rocket ship. Still imagine this thing thundering down a British road at 80 miles per hour, both terrifying and glorious. 14. Not road legal. Of course, that speed didn't make it street legal. The UK has strict width limits, and Nemo's creation broke them by nearly 3 feet. No airbags, no safety systems, no crumple zones, just brass leather and bravado. Driving it on public roads required police escorts and special permits, and some routes were literally too narrow to use. The production team needed insurance just to move it between sets. You can almost hear the underwriters crying. 13. Only 2 built. Here's a shocker. They built just 2 cars, one fully functional hero vehicle, and another rigged with scaffolding for close-up shots. The running car handled every stunt chase and beauty shot. The second ace, stationary set piece built purely to capture interiors and dialogue scenes. No backup, no duplicates. That meant one breakdown could have shut down the entire film. Talk about pressure and confidence. 12. 28-inch wheels of excess. Those 6 enormous wheels, each measured 28 inches custom made and perfectly balanced. They gave the car its grand, intimidating stance like something that could crush buildings if it wanted to. But those same wheels made it a nightmare mechanically. The tires were rare, the suspension struggled under the weight, and changing one flat would have needed industrial machinery. This wasn't a car you fixed on the roadside. You'd need a crane. 11. Ganesha guards the grill. Perhaps the most beautiful detail of all twin Ganesha statues, guarding the front grille with elephant-shaped door handles, echoing Captain Nemo's Indian heritage. These weren't mere decorations. They were meticulously sculpted guardians honoring the character's royal roots. Every inch of the car blended engineering with spiritual artistry, brass fixtures, carved patterns and motifs inspired by Indian temples. It wasn't just a car. It was cultural storytelling and metal-formed Nemo's soul forged in steel and ivory. 10. Cracked ivory paint job. That haunting bone-white finish wasn't simply painted, it was crafted. The designers wanted the Nautilus to look ancient, as though carved from aged ivory that had weathered decades beneath the sea. So they layered specialized cracking agents and weathering compounds one after another by hand. Too much, and it looked damaged. Too little, and it looked fake. After weeks of trial and error, they achieved perfection, a surface that shimmered under studio lights like old porcelain. It gave the car an archaeological quality, a relic brought to life. 9. Land Rover gauges. Inside step inside, and fantasy meets function. Behind the tufted leather and brass trim were real Land Rover gauges, speedometer, temperature, fuel, all fully operational. It was an intentional contrast, Victorian opulence wrapped around modern utility. The interior felt like a time capsule, a gentleman's club collided with a science lab. The steering wheel was handcrafted wood and brass, heavy and beautiful, while straps and toggles served no purpose beyond looking impossibly cool. Nemo's car wasn't just built to drive, it was built to dazzle. 8. Designed by Carol Spear. The mind behind this madness. Carol Spear, the film's production designer, and a longtime collaborator of David Cronenberg. She wanted every detail of the Nautilus to reflect Nemo's character, his intellect isolation, and Indian heritage. The sheer scale represented his ambition, the ornamentation his nobility, the mechanics his genius. Spear's insistence on practical effects made the car feel alive on screen. It wasn't just design, it was narrative craftsmanship, every curve and rivet telling part of his story. 7. Miniature Venice chase. You remember that insane chase through Venice buildings, collapsing canals, exploding. None of that was CGI. It was filmed using 1/5 scale miniatures with a 4-foot-long remote-controlled Nautilus gliding through a model city. The effects team engineered a moving wire rig to make it accelerate, drift, even slide. Each miniature building was pre-weakened, so it would shatter on cue with debris flying in perfect proportion. Old-school movie magic at its finest, painstaking, precise, and beautifully chaotic. 6. Venice built in Prague. And the Venice you saw. It wasn't Venice at all. The production rebuilt entire canal streets inside Prague sound stages, complete with running water and authentic Venetian textures. Even the reflections on the canals were tested to match the light of the real city. Why not film in Venice? because Nemo's 9-foot-wide monster simply wouldn't fit through the real streets. The result was surreal, a full-scale fantasy Venice built just so one impossible car could storm through it. And somehow, it looked utterly believable. 5. Prague floods hit production. Then nature decided to remind the filmmakers who was really in charge. In August 2002, massive floods swept through Prague, washing over the very sound stages that held the replica city of Venice. Entire sets were ruined, props destroyed, and costumes lost. The Nautilus barely escaped. Crews hauled it to higher ground just in time. Production shut down for weeks, hemorrhaging money as they rebuilt from scratch. The irony wasn't lost on anyone Venice sinking under real floodwater while filming a fantasy about a man of the sea. 4. Poster-worthy co-star. When marketing time came, the studio knew exactly what their real star was. Sean Connery's face might have sold tickets, but the Nautilus car dominated every poster and trailer. Its ivory fins and impossible symmetry stole the spotlight, half vehicle, half cathedral. There were toys, scale models, even limited edition sculptures. Critics might have torn the movie apart, but everyone agreed on one thing: that car was magnificent. It became the film's enduring icon, the one thing nobody could forget. Nobody. 3. Parade and motor show star. After filming wrapped, Nemo's machine didn't fade into storage, it went on tour. It appeared at the Essen Motor Show surrounded by modern supercars, yet stealing every gaze, and later rolled proudly through London's Lord Mayor's show parade. Crowds gasped as this steampunk leviathan purred past centuries-old architecture. It wasn't CGI, it wasn't a replica. It was the real car, fully operational and utterly surreal. For a brief moment, Captain Nemo's impossible dream conquered the real world. 2. Blenheim Palace. Auction and sale. Years later, in 2015, the legendary car resurfaced at Blenheim Palace, where auctioneers at Coy's put it under the hammer. Collectors whispered six-figure predictions, but the final price stunned everyone. $31,860, roughly $50,000. For the price of a used SUV, someone walked away with a piece of cinematic legend, the only running Nautilus car ever built. The buyer stayed anonymous. Since that day, the car's whereabouts are a mystery, perhaps resting in a private collection, perhaps hidden in a warehouse waiting to roar again. 1. Stored by Prop Store. Before that auction, the Nautilus found safe harbor at the prop store in the UK, a vault for Hollywood's most treasured relics, from Star Wars helmets to James Bond gadgets. There, this six-wheeled marvel was preserved like a crown jewel. It wasn't simply parked. It was cared for, climate-controlled environment, routine maintenance, every brass detail cleaned and cataloged. They documented everything: measurements, mechanical drawings, photographs, even its film history. For years, visitors would walk into that quiet warehouse and gasp, because there it was, gleaming under the soft light, still capable of running, still magnificent. A piece of movie history that shouldn't have existed, but did. And that's the heart of Captain Nemo's Nautilus car. A machine too big, too heavy, too ornate, too ambitious, and somehow too real to forget. It symbolizes the era when filmmakers built dreams with steel and sweat, not green screens. Back in 2003, someone dared to say, "Let's make a real six-wheeled Victorian submarine car." And they actually did. It remains one of the strangest, most spectacular examples of practical movie magic ever created, a mechanical myth that outlived the movie itself. So, which of these facts surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments below. And if you love stories about the weird, wild, and wonderful cars of cinema, make sure to subscribe, because this isn't the end of the road. It's just another turn down the rabbit hole of movie machines that time forgot.